I am here with a familiar face and an old friend, Michael Steele, the former RNC chairman and the former lieutenant governor of Maryland. You, of course, know him from all over NBC, MSNBC, particularly his weekend show, The Weekend on MSNBC. He's co-hosts it, 8 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays with Simone and Alicia. It's must-see TV. He's also the host of the Michael Steele podcast and member of Republicans for Harris. Thank you for taking the time on this interesting week, sir.
Hey, dude, it's good to be with you. This is a real treat to be hanging out with Donny on his podcast, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
I got to this is breaking on Thursday, but we're taping this the first day of the convention. And I just have one of my favorite quotes I've read anywhere from you last month on the current state of the GOP. The GOP needs the biggest political enema it has ever seen. I love that. Expand in 100 words or less, please.
Yeah, no, dude, it's time to clean house. It's time to clean out this infection that the party has incurred. Look, I have been involved at all levels of this party since probably the late 1980s, when I first politically got involved in an official way. So I've been in this space a long time as a county chairman, state chairman, national chairman, elected official. So I know a lot of how the sausage has been made, and more importantly, those moments, Donny, and you know it well too, where we started to break, where we saw it a little bit with Tea Party, we saw a little bit back in the late 1960s. You've seen it in the 1950s. There are these periods in time where the party sort of breaks with itself. This is the first time where the political leadership absolutely collapsed and allowed the break to happen. I mean, completely happen. You didn't have leaders like McConnell and others stand up and say no. At all points and at all times, they gave in, capitulated, bent over, bent the knee, call it what you want. So now we've got this infection that has run through the party, has run good people out of the party, like our dear friend Joe Scarborough and Nicole Wallace, pushed them aside. And the ones who stayed, like a Liz Cheney, they've castigated and called rhino, myself included. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about the enema right now. I'm all about
would a loss, which would be the 7th year in a row of them losing, if you include the midterms and not necessarily Trump's 2016 presidential run, but every election since then has been a loss for the Republicans. Will a loss this time? Because I keep saying they're just going to keep losing, and at some point go, this ain't working. This MAGA thing may seem good on paper. It ain't working with 150 million people. It just doesn't fly.
Yeah. I think that may be the beginning in some respects. But look, we have to be realistic. MAGA has a hold of the infrastructure of the party. MAGA has itself right now a grip that you're going to have to pry it apart. So the party is looking at how do you release that grip. It has, of the 168 members that make up the Republican National Committee, that's the national committee man, committee woman, and chairman from every state, plus the territories. About 145 of those members are MAGA. They have, over time, moved out good leaders at the state and local level, state central committees, county central committees. And taken hold. So you've got to now unpack that. You've got to unwind that by challenging at the state and local level for those leadership positions in the party. Then it's the candidate recruitment. You've got to engage in a primary in which you go head to head to take out the MAGA candidate in primaries. And sometimes that requires what we did in Utah and have done in Washington State and other places, where we create a relationship and alignment with Democrats who aren't going to win that seat because they're outnumbered. The math doesn't work for them. But they don't have to put a candidate on the ballot, and they in turn can get behind the non-MAGA Republican and begin to change the dynamics on the ground. So there are a lot of strategies that we're looking at and will be involved in. This is personal on so many levels. I've been a Republican since 1976. And to have this happen to a once proud party the way it's happened, and to have, again, good men and women who are leaders that I've worked with over the years just let it happen
Well,
without a fight. That's
here-
been the most problematic part for me, Donny.
I've said this on the air many times. I wonder, and it's going to sound sexist, but I'm just going to do it from a man's perspective, how these men look at who bend their knee and acquiesce and sell their souls, whether it's Ted Cruz, we can go on the list. How do they look at their spouses or their children or their neighbors? It's just, you've just been neutered.
Yes.
I guess, is it just to be near power? I'll take whatever shellacking I need to take. It's such an interesting behavioral moment that
okay, so let's just bring it to the current ticket. How does J.D. Vance
right
look at his wife, who is a person of color? How does he look at his children when he has his running mate literally racializing Kamala Harris, her name, her heritage? How do you explain that to your family? I don't know.
By the way, the wife doesn't look happy. She did not look happy at the event.
No, she didn't look happy.
She looked like she was just put upon. You know, it's interesting. Everybody keeps talking. There's two secrets. There are two wonderful things happening for the Democrats. One, her amazing first 4 weeks and how Trump is self-destructing. But a lot of the Republicans are saying, well, stick to the issues. We need to stick to the issues. Now, when I look at the three big Republican issues, immigration, crime, and the economy. Crime, down 24% since Trump. Yep. Okay, number one. Immigration is the lowest illegal undocumented crossings since 2019. The economy, we can go on and on and on. It's through the roof. Even inflation has driven down by 2/3.
2.9%.
They don't even have the issues anymore. And that's the irony of this whole thing.
It is. And when they have the issues, let's just go back a year and just say, okay, you had the problems at the border. You had the economy was in the throes and the grips of inflation, right? Coming down, but still at that point, it reached a high of 9-point-some%. And then, of course, you have the other issues that were kind of tangentially out there, Dobbs and things like that were kind of floating. When they had these narratives that they could lean into, they didn't. They didn't. Why? Because Donald Trump didn't want them to or didn't know how to. Yeah. And so if you're taking your cues from a clueless individual who's only self-obsessed with what he thinks and what he believes, you're going to let good stuff just fall by the wayside. So instead of saying leveling up as a presidential campaign, because remember, Donald Trump has been running since he announced in November 2022.
Yeah.
When he announced for this particular run in November 2022, what has he laid out in damn near 2 years of running? Nothing. And so the party has basically been positionless on a host of issues. Note, it did not have a platform in the 2020 presidential election. It decided, okay, we're going to do a platform in 2024. And what is it? It's largely Project 2025, watered down and dressed up. And of course, Donald Trump talking points about the border and other people.
Speaking of Project 2025, are you surprised, because I am, when I talk to bright people on the other side of the political spectrum, and you say, you do know if Donald Trump gets elected, our democracy as we know it is no longer going to be. We probably won't have real elections anymore. The FCC is going to report into him. He's going to weaponize the Justice Department. He's going to bring back the Insurrection Act, have the military. It's all there. It's all laid out. And they kind of tilt their heads like, nah, we have checks and balances. That's not gonna. You're crazy, Donny. And it's like it's in Technicolor. It's there. As any authoritarian does. They tell you what they want to do, and this time, and then their answer is, "Well, it didn't happen last time." I said, "Can we talk about January 6th? What do you mean it didn't happen the last time?" And this time, he's going to have all the right hombres around him. I don't get it. Is it just denial? What is it?
It's a lot of things, but at the core of all of it is this central belief that Republicans still have, and you can pick any one of them in the House, the Senate, governors, it doesn't matter. They still have this core thinking that they can control Donald Trump and they can control for what he does. And they cannot. They are hapless bunnies subject to the wolf that decides today I'm going to eat that one versus that one. And that's it. That's their life. They just wait and hope and pray they don't get eaten. And because they haven't been eaten yet, they think that they've got some type of mojo or power that prevents them from getting consumed by Trump and Trumpism at some point. And that's where you see a lot of the placating, and they think that is part of controlling him when they placate him, because it could be worse. I've actually had them say, well, if we hadn't agreed to the, not moving on the border bill, for example, it would have been worse. And I'm like, worse than what? Tell me what it would. Doing something would be worse than what?
Yeah.
Doing nothing?
Let's shift to Kamala, who you have to give an A++. And the last 4 weeks, I mean, I know in your lifetime, in my lifetime, I have never seen a whiplash like this in any race. Break it down for me. What happened?
Well, this is actually something that you, in your skill set, are very expert at appreciating and understanding. This is a moment that was not branded by the players, but branded by the people. The people saw an opening and they took it and they ran for it. And we can have the conversation because you and I were on the opposite side of the Biden story.
Yes.
At the time, I thought basically and still believe that he got ran out of the job, and we could have that discussion. But having said that, the people, if you look at the numbers and you look at how they moved, the Democratic base largely stayed with Biden after the debate. They didn't move off of him. He lost no ground with his base.
All the independents and the swing voters and all disappeared.
Yeah, right? but even there, it wasn't. There was a total movement of 2 points in the polls. He was at 4 going into the debate. He was at 6 the day he left. He left the campaign behind Trump. So he never lost a whole lot. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was what voters took from this. And they saw the opening, and it told me that they were hungry for something.
There was something
and they were
right?
just waiting for that something to come along, and it did. When Biden gave everyone permission to support Kamala, it was like, done, we're there.
In my business, it's called pent up demand. I mean, it was there. It was just, we want something different. Give us something new. And the power of Kamala right now is, if you look at every, what I'll call Democratic wave, not just, Biden squeaked by in 20, but when you look at Clinton, not Hillary, Bill, when you look at Barack Obama, and now you look at Kamala, that thing, that hope and change, that thing that's bigger than any, it's just, you kind of feel it happening. And Trump certainly feels it. And he looks like a guy, it looks like a guy who's getting hit by a tidal wave, because it is a wave. And I love that you said something very interesting. That's all anybody keeps talking about. She's got to give interviews. And you said, she's talking to the American people every day. I mean, and there's a connection that's happening there. And
this is
going.
This is, again, something that guys in your business, sociologists and others who look at trend lines, behaviors, will take an important note of. And that is, like with Reagan, like with Clinton, like with Obama, and even Trump, they had this, they decided
100% right.
Whether consciously or subconsciously, I'm going down this road. I know the media and the political folks think I need to talk to them and hang with them. I'm going over them directly to people. And that's what she's done. And my attitude is, I'm sorry, and my boy Crystalisa, love him. He's a good pal. I appreciate him. But I'm sorry, they don't need to talk to you. She don't need to talk to Washington Post. She'll need to talk to the New York Times. She will on her terms, because right now her conversation going into this convention has been directly to people. The ads that they've cut with her and Walz, Tim Walz, sitting there and around a table just kind of talking. Yeah. They just shoot the breeze, and she's they're showing of videos of her cooking food and hanging out. And that's Brandon, baby. That is me, Brandon. Put my imprimatur in your head directly. I don't need a third party to do that. And that's what I think this convention is going to do. She's going to come out of this thing. I'm telling you now, her election will be bigger than Obama's. This moment will be bigger than Obama's.
I can see something really big happening. I have to tell you, speaking of Waltz, I was very long Shapiro and was disappointed, thought she made a mistake. She didn't. He was the right pick. I really, and what I liked about the Shapiro pick was gives you Pennsylvania theoretically. The ticket looks and feels young and vibrant. It moves you to the center. The ticket is feeling young and vibrant. It's feeling in the center. And and it might have been too slick the other way around. It might have been, two urban players. Yeah. Guess what? A Jew and a black walk into a bar. I mean, so they might have been a little too much. I mean, I'm of course living on East 78th Street. So, but it was the right pick.
Of milk.
Yeah, that's. But it seems to have been the right pick. He just is disarming. He shoots arrows and you don't even see him coming. I love this guy.
Yeah, he's your coach. He's your counselor. He's your grandpa. He's your uncle. I mean, he kind of fits a lot of these little buckets narratively when the campaign is talking about going forward and the campaign is talking about freedom and the ability to make important choices in your life. And that's just not on the abortion piece, but that's on how you're going to run. The thing, Donny, the branding here that's got me just kind of whipsawed is the Democrats sound more Republican.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
Than the Republicans do. I mean, it's just wild. And I know a lot of my more progressive friends are probably like, gagging at the moment. But it does speak to a point of where the country is. It's floating in the center left, center right space.
It's up between I like to say between the 45-yard lines. I mean, that's where it lives. That's where it lives.
That's a branding way. But in a political lane, I'm looking at how people identify politically.
Yes.
And where and because those are the people who are going to tell you how they're going to vote, right? And if you can speak to your analogy between the 45s. Between the center left, center right, okay, I'm listening, and it is. I think there's an exhaustion with extremism on all sides. On
both sides.
People
both sides.
Can I just have a glass of milk? Right?
Yeah. Now the thing that is, I don't want to say enjoyable to watch. It's enjoyable only because it's taking Trump down. He does not know how to run against a woman of color. You saw it at that conference of journalists. The disdain, against women and against people of color. You put it together. He doesn't know what to do. And Hillary, for some reason, it was okay to beat up on Hillary because she was a Clinton. It was Bill Clinton 2.0. Right. So it was like, and so beating up on a woman, no bueno. Beating up on a woman of color, no bueno. And he doesn't know what the fuck to do.
He doesn't know what to do. They haven't figured it out. Chris LaSafita and Susie Wiles, they don't. They may have some formulas that they can try, some narratives, some commercials they can run. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Donald Trump standing on a stage on September 10th against her. And he's shown already the propensity to absolutely crack around her narrative. He does not know how to go after her. And without playing to these false extremist views, like she's, this sort of 1970s, 1980s language around, everybody looked at Californians as, oh yeah, the left coast. And there's these left liberal people are like, what the hell are you talking about? No one even talks that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem for him. I'm just curious how they staged this conversation, this debate on September 10th, because if it's one where they're kind of walking around like a town hall style, if it's the traditional podiums or if it's sitting down at a table, every one of those, he's going to be uncomfortable.
He's got a problem with it. He's got a problem. I'm convinced there's going to be a real grotesque racist slip. I mean, he's said a bunch of racist things already. I could you see something coming out that is even more egregious than the things we've heard already.
You know what's going to happen, Donny, when he calls her Kamala.
Yeah.
And she goes, excuse me, my name is Kamala.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does he do at that point?
Yeah.
What does he do? Where does he go?
I know. I got my popcorn ready. I cannot wait. I just because she's a prosecutor, she's great on her feet, and she's got the facts on her side. You know, even everybody talks about the border. He carries on about the border and says, Mr. Trump, we had the most conservative bill, Mr. Langford's bill, that would have stopped this 2 years ago, and you, just like you are responsible for Roe v. Wade, you are responsible for the border. Yeah. Like it's like every move, there's a judo move for every single, beyond the tone and manner where he's going to be off. I'm not worried about her facing any issue because there's an answer for each one.
There very much is, and what you've just described in chess is coming out with every move being a checkmate, because he cannot verbally battle with her. He cannot factually battle with her because facts are an anathema to him. He doesn't know what they are. He cannot, on any level that would constitute a debate, a presidential debate, lay out a vision for what he wants to do, because when he does, if he does, she'll just dive bomb into it. Just like you said, we're going to build the wall. Well, okay, we put the resources in to shore up the wall, to put technology on the wall, to give us more border security, and you said no. So now you're more interested in building the wall? What? Why now? There's just so many ways you can tack to him. We haven't touched on the abortion conversation that they're going to have on that stage. And then if this is done correctly, you got to deal with the fact that, oh, Mr. Trump, in 8 days, you could be sentenced on 34 felony counts. What?
Yeah. By the way, I think that's last on the list. But going back to the abortion, especially that she was a woman that was sexually abused and sexually attacked, to be able to turn to an older, rich, nasty white man and say, do you know what it feels like to actually, you do know what it feels like. You've been on the other side of it, to tell you the truth. I mean, there's so much to work with there.
There is. Oh, so I think with those moments, and I'll be honest, hands in the air, I'm not convinced the debate actually happens. Okay, he's agreed to September 10th.
I agree with you.
But I think at some point someone's got to get in his head and say to him, you do not want to stand on the stage with that woman, because
here's the problem he'll have.
Will not survive. You're
only a week and a half out of the DNC. So clearly coming out of DNC, she'll have a bump. So it's going to be, and there's only a week in between. And if he backs out, he's going to look like such a putz. I mean, I don't know if he's got a choice. I agree. I never thought he was going to agree in the first place. But I don't know how he does it without looking so weak and frightened at this point where, as we used to say in Queens, you're scared, You're
scared, right?
You're scared.
Like
you're
his
scared.
Daddy told me he should have kept his ass in Queens.
Yeah.
He would have been better off in Queens. No, I got to go explore the world. Well, guess what? The world's coming to you, baby. Gonna land right on your head.
Talk about your friend Chris, who's running the campaign, who I've never met, but I hear is very competent at what he does. What is such a losing formula is the carnage speech. That our country sucks and everything sucks. When nobody wants to hear that, especially when everything doesn't suck. Why are they allowing? Not that you can control him to stay so in this dark place, which is never traditionally a winning formula.
So here's a little bit of where, and maybe you can enlighten folks on this part of it as well. This is where in the political space, where your narrative, the story you tell, the scenes you set in people's minds, and the branding that you kind of put out there on an issue like the border and that type of thing. you lose control of it. I said about 3 years ago in the 2020 race, 5 years ago now, in that race, there was a point where Donald Trump lost control of the MAGA story and the MAGA branding. MAGA, in other words, has become bigger than Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to the immersion of Ron DeSantis,
Mm-hmm.
right, as the sort of the new version, the updated, better version of MAGA political leadership. Trump definitely beat that back. But what he has not been able to do is to regain control of the stories and to regain control of the narratives. So it's harder now for him to tell a story about light because he's so ingrained the story about darkness.
So deep of it. Yeah.
And that's when you talk to anyone in MAGA, they just, all the economy is the worst it has been in America in the history of the world. You have people exaggerating. I can't get butter because butter is now $5 a tub. Where? What? I mean, unless you're getting some, what are you buying? But all the storylines are dystopian. They're very dark. They're very ugly because they believe that that's how things are, and it gives them the fervor to fight for him, Trump, and to change and to figure out that they're going to make the change, which is why the Project 2025 narrative works so well because it sits right into that space. It sits right in there on downsizing government, firing all these people, taking people and putting them in concentration camps to ship them out of the country. There is no regard for the impact of anything. It's just that it's this visceral, we now have to own all the Christian nationals. That's the whole Christian nationalism thing. Yeah. We want to put the sign of the cross on the flag of America. Everybody needs to be a Christian. Sorry, Donny.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick it out as a Jew. Speaking of which,
I'm with you, brother. I'm sticking with you. I got your back. Don't worry.
This is what's speaking of which is such a head fake. I just posted this the other day, in that there is this incredible head fake that Trump. I got so offended when Trump talked about what a good Jew is, and I said, "You are the farthest thing what knows what a good Jew is or isn't. You stand for nothing." But there's this false narrative that the Republicans are automatically better for the Jews. Yeah. Joe Biden could not have done more than he has done for Israel. There's nothing else that and there is this, I don't know where it comes from, but I have a lot of friends who are like, well, they're better for Israel. I'm like, where is that coming from? And what has Kamala Harris said other than Israel needs to defend itself? They need to go after the terrorists. We want to cease fire. We'd like to see the hostages home, and we want them to do it in as conscious of civilians as possible. I'm a Jew. I got no problem with any of that. None of those. So where is this all coming from?
I think a lot of it comes from an underlying anti-Semitism that still permeates, and it masks itself as an overarching support for Israel. And note that I said Israel, not Jews.
Jews, yes.
All right.
Yes.
And
yes.
So,
yes.
You see where I'm going? So it's so that's how you have this weird alignment of people who are not friendly towards Jewish people, but are in support of Israel, the state of Israel. And it's sort of the hard lining aspects of it. It's like we support the territory and the land, but the people are a whole different story. And they don't appreciate the fact that you have within Judaism those who identify with the Jewish tradition and all of that you have different approaches and views. Yes. And so, you have, if you talk to rank and file Jewish voters, they're going to speak to you about a two-state solution. They're going to speak to you about their concern for what you see Netanyahu doing.
Yes.
But that
By the way,
has,
what I say to people is that 70% of people in Israel want Netanyahu gone.
thank you.
That doesn't
Thank
make you. It's this blind spot
It's a
that
blind
I don't. Netanyahu is no good for anybody right now. Netanyahu is the one who is keeping the peace from happening, because he knows if it happens, he goes to jail.
That's
the latest that's on the table, even his secretary, his cabinet, his defense ministry wants this deal done. So there's a lot of kind of within the Jewish community, a lot of back and forth that is making me sad, and it's causing some friction between friends and I, and it's challenging. It really, really is.
It is challenging, but I think if you take out the Netanyahu piece, that challenge largely dissipates.
I agree.
Because at the end of the day, everybody knows 30, 40 years now since the days of Clinton, and certainly the days of Obama, that a two-state solution is the path forward. It just is.
Right.
And what's happening to the Palestinian people, I hear more outrage from my Jewish friends than I do from some of my Christian friends about what's happening to the Palestinian people. And so there is this weird moment where you've got forces that are in place that are kind of keeping us from turning that corner, very much as you described. And that's why I think, putting it in sort of language that a lot of the neo-Christians on the right talk about, divine intervention or calling. Joe Biden being president at this moment, just think if he'd lost that election, and you have Biden Netanyahu and Trump in this moment, because Trump is fully aligned with Netanyahu.
Oh, yeah. No, we would have a dangerous world. This could be a powder keg situation. It really could. So how do you handle this? Is going to air Thursday. How does the party handle the rioting? It's not rioting, the protests going on. If it's peaceful protests, no problem. What if things start to get out of hand, like they have on college campuses and
my sense coming out of this that fight is changed a lot. It is not something, number one, that the American people got behind in the first place. So there was not this hue and cry from Americans across the country. You had hot spots in various areas, various college campuses. These weren't protests that were popping up in folks' neighborhood, unless you had that college in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think for Kamala Harris coming out of the convention, and I think, again, we're doing this before the week is over, my bet is that these will be largely quiet, relatively speaking.
I agree.
I don't think there's going to be buildings burnings and cars on fire. No. I don't think there'll be any of that, because I think a lot of that energy is dissipated. I think a lot of that now, they see, the way you started this part of the conversation, noting what Kamala Harris has said, and that has resonated with a lot of the protesters out there. And so they're waiting to see. And so a lot of it will depend on her next moves in this space post-convention. But I don't think we're going to see the kind of flare-ups that we saw before. And I just don't think the college campuses, look, you just had which university president just stepped down in the last week. These college presidents know that they can't afford to have a repeat. And
well, so if you do a clinical experiment, every college president that handled it according to the law and said, we're not going to allow this, we're not going to allow hate, we're going to shut it down, nobody got chagrined from it, nobody got fired. No. The people that lost their jobs, that were on the firing line, no pun intended, were the ones that allowed this to happen. And it was, I had a lot of friends' kids terrified to walk in their own campus. And what bothered me was, as a Jew, is that somehow these protesters were afforded a different set of kid gloves and a different luxury than other protesters. And that was offensive to me.
And the reality of it was you had professional protesters who got into the mix of this thing. And that's where a lot of the violence occurs. That's where a lot of the damage to property would occur, and the loud, ugly noises. And so I think a lot of lessons have been learned by the right people to avoid a repeat of what we saw earlier this year. So a lot has happened with the momentous decision of one man who's changed, I think, the trajectory of not just
Amen.
the political campaign in a race, but the country. And
the
Joe Biden is going to, someone said they'll put him on the Democratic Mount Rushmore.
100%. History is going to lionize him.
They're going to treat Joe Biden history's going to treat him very well. I think.
Before I let you go, just handicap what's going to happen the first week of November.
Look, this is going to be without a doubt a very contentious election. I think MAGA and Trump are going to make it that way. They have promised to have 100,000 plus activists. Poll watchers, right? They're basically going to be intimidators at polling places in communities that I live in, and that other Americans of color live in. They're going to have, I think, a lot of noise, ugly noise. But I think in the main, Americans are ready for that. I think the spirit right now, if this energy can hold through to November, we're going to see an enormous sea change in the country. So, look, I look forward to the first African American woman president, and I'm excited about that prospect.
I look forward to a normal president. Okay, that's right. And just getting back to human decency. Human decency. You got me at that. Michael Steele. You could see him Saturdays and Sundays at 8 a.m. Great TV. You could also see him September 7th at the big MSNBC Democracy Doo-Hop Woo-Ha.
That's going to be fun.
Give me 30 seconds on that.
Look, this is folks. If you get a chance to get some tickets and come by, we're going to be up in Brooklyn and having a great conversation with people.
Where is it?
It's at the. Give me 30 seconds. Let me pull it up.
Well, I might have it here. Hold on one second.
You might have it there. I know I have it.
Brooklyn Academy of Music.
That's it. And so this Fan Fest is going to be an opportunity for us to say thank you to our fans and the people who watch our shows and programming, and to hang with them and talk politics, talk shop, and just come out, have a nice dinner in the evening. It's going to be fun.
Michael Steele, you are a gentleman, a scholar, a man of the people. Thank you for taking the time. How busy you are, my friend.
Thank you, Donny. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.